Commander Queen cheered her victory, until she saw the human enter. The arena went silent, the crowd roared like thunder. In the massive arena, 20,000 alien beings from across the galaxy sat in their seats, cheering and screaming with excitement. Their voices echoed off the metal walls of Kepler Station's Grand Coliseum, creating a sound that could be heard 3 levels away. In the center of the arena floor, Commander Queen Zixathara raised her weapon high above her head. The bioelectric blade glowed bright blue, crackling with deadly energy. Her dark green armor reflected the arena lights, making her look like a warrior from ancient legends. She was tall and strong, with 4 arms and compound eyes that could see in many directions at once. The Vorthic commander had just won another battle. Her opponent, a massive Gorvanian berserker twice her size, lay unconscious on the arena floor. The creature's thick fur was singed from her electric attacks, but he would live. Zixathara always made sure her enemies survived. It was more honorable that way. Victory to Commander Queen Zixathara. The arena announcer's voice boomed through the speakers. The announcer was a floating crystal being whose voice could be heard clearly by every species present. That makes 127 wins in a row, still undefeated after 3 standard years. The crowd went wild again. Alien beings of all shapes and sizes jumped from their seats. 6-legged centaurians clicked their claws together in approval. The slug-like molluskins left trails of happy slime on their seats. Even the proud bird-like avians ruffled their colorful feathers in respect. Zixathara smiled, showing her sharp teeth. This arena was more than just entertainment for the galaxy. It was a place where different species could prove their strength and earn respect from others. Before she started fighting here, the Vorthic people were just simple traders. Nobody feared them or took them seriously in galactic politics. But now everyone knew the name Zixathara. Her victories had made the Vorthic Empire a power to be respected. Other species thought twice before trying to cheat them in trade deals. Their military grew stronger as young Vorthic joined up, inspired by their champion's success. She walked slowly around the arena, letting the crowd see her. Her forearms moved gracefully, acknowledging the cheers from different sections. The Vorthic supporters in the upper levels chanted her name in their clicking language. Even supporters of other species showed respect by remaining silent as she passed. Who will be next? Zixathara called out, her voice carrying across the arena without the speakers. Who thinks they can break my winning streak? The crowd laughed and cheered louder. Everyone knew the answer was nobody. Zixathara had defeated the best warriors from 47 different species. She had beaten creatures with natural armor thicker than starship hulls. She had outfought beings who could breathe fire or shoot poison. She had even defeated mechanical warriors built specifically to fight in arenas like this one. The arena master, a thin blue being with tentacles for arms, floated down to the center of the fighting area. Today's combat exhibition is complete, he announced. Commander Queen Zixathara remains our undefeated champion. All gambling debts will be settled according to the posted odds. But before the crowd could start leaving, something unexpected happened. A deep rumbling sound filled the arena. The massive entrance doors at the far end of the fighting floor began to open. These doors were usually only opened at the beginning of combat sessions or for special ceremonies. The crowd's cheering slowly died down to confused whispers. Even Zixathara turned to look at the doors, her compound eyes focusing on the dark opening that appeared as they slid apart. The arena master looked confused too, checking his electronic tablet for any scheduled events. I show no additional combats scheduled for today, the arena master announced, his tentacles waving nervously. All registered fighters have already competed. But the doors continued opening until they reached their full width. The opening was large enough for the biggest creatures in the galaxy to walk through. Usually, massive aliens would charge out, roaring and beating their chests to intimidate their opponents and excite the crowd. This time, nothing happened for several long seconds. The dark doorway remained empty and silent. The only sound in the entire arena was the quiet hum of the air recycling systems. 20,000 beings held their breath, waiting to see what would emerge. Then, slowly, a figure stepped out of the shadows. The crowd gasped in surprise. Instead of some huge monster or armored warrior, the figure was small and walked on just 2 legs. It was much shorter than most species represented in the arena. Its skin was pale pink, and dark hair grew only on the top of its head. It wore simple cloth clothing, just a plain shirt and pants, with soft shoes on its feet. Most surprising of all, the being carried no weapons, no energy blades, no projectile launchers, no natural claws or fangs. Its hands were empty and looked soft, like they had never held anything more dangerous than eating utensils. The figure walked calmly toward the center of the arena. Its movements were smooth and steady, showing no fear or excitement. It simply walked like someone taking a peaceful stroll through a garden. "What species is that?" Someone in the crowd whispered loudly enough to be heard several rows away. "I've never seen anything like it," another voice replied. "Look how small it is. What's it doing in a combat arena?" The whispers spread through the crowd like ripples on water. Beings turned to their neighbors, asking questions nobody could answer. Even the arena master was frantically checking his databases, trying to identify the mysterious newcomer. Zixathara stood perfectly still, all 4 of her arms at her sides. Her warrior instincts told her something was very wrong about this situation. In her many years of fighting, she had learned to trust those instincts. They had kept her alive through countless battles. The small being reached the center of the arena and stopped about 20 feet away from her. It looked directly at her with eyes that seemed surprisingly calm. For someone facing the galaxy's greatest warrior, those eyes were different from any she had seen before. Not the compound eyes of her own species, or the large single eyes of many others. They were small and dark, but they seemed to see everything. Then the being spoke, and his voice carried clearly across the silent arena despite being quiet and calm. "My name is Marcus Chen," it said in perfect galactic standard language. "I would like to challenge the champion." The silence that followed was so complete that people could hear their own heartbeats. Commander Queen Zixathara, undefeated champion of the galaxy, stared at this small, weaponless creature that had just challenged her to combat. For the first time in 3 years, she felt something she had almost forgotten: uncertainty. The arena master's tentacles shook as he floated between Marcus Chen and Commander Queen Zixathara. His blue skin had turned pale, and his large eyes darted nervously between the 2 fighters. Never in his 20 years of running arena matches had something like this happened. "Sir," the arena master said carefully to Marcus, "I need to verify your species registration and combat clearance before any official match can begin." Marcus nodded politely. "I understand your procedures. However, I believe you will find no records of my species in your current databases." The arena master quickly typed commands into his floating tablet. Data scrolled across the screen as he searched through thousands of registered species. His expression grew more confused with each passing second. What species are you exactly?" he asked. "I am human," Marcus replied simply. A gasp went through the crowd. Even those who had never heard the word before could tell from the reactions of others that this was significant. In the VIP section, several ancient beings suddenly sat up straighter. In their seats, "Human," the arena master repeated, his voice cracking slightly. "But that's impossible. Humans are extinct," finished an old voice from the crowd. Everyone turned to see who had spoken. In the highest tier of VIP seats, an ancient Etherean elder slowly rose to his feet. His body was thin and tall, covered in flowing robes that seemed to move without any wind. His face was ancient beyond measure, with eyes that had seen millennia pass by. "The human homeworld of Earth was destroyed over 200 years ago," the elder continued, his psychic voice reaching everyone in the arena without making a sound. "Their entire species was wiped out. There should be no humans left alive anywhere." In the galaxy, the crowd began talking excitedly among themselves. Some species had heard old stories about humans, but most thought they were just myths. Tales told around campfires about a species that had lived on a blue and green world, far from the galactic center. Zixathara kept her eyes focused on Marcus while listening to the conversations. Around her, she called to her team of advisors, who quickly ran down to the arena floor carrying electronic tablets and communication devices. Find out everything you can about humans, she ordered them. I want to know their strengths, weaknesses, fighting styles, and anything else that might help me understand what I'm facing. Her advisors scattered to different parts of the arena, making urgent calls and searching databases. While they worked, Zixathara studied Marcus more carefully. He stood completely relaxed, his arms hanging loose at his sides. He showed no signs of nervousness or fear, even though he was surrounded by thousands of aliens and facing the galaxy's greatest warrior. After several minutes, her chief advisor returned with a worried expression on his green face. Commander, we have a problem. The information we're finding about humans is contradictory. What do you mean? Zixathara asked. Some sources say humans were weak scavengers who survived by hiding and avoiding conflict. They describe them as small, fragile beings who used tools and diplomacy instead of fighting. In the other sources, the advisor's antennae twitched nervously. The other sources are classified at the highest levels of galactic security. What little we can access suggests that humans were dangerous. Very dangerous. In the crowd, betting agencies were having their own problems. Normally, they would set odds based on known information about each fighter's species and past performance. But with no data on human combat abilities, they couldn't calculate fair betting odds. How do we bet on something we know nothing about? One bookie complained to his partner. Look at him, the partner replied, pointing at Marcus. He's tiny compared to the commander. He has no weapons, no armor, no visible enhancements. This should be the shortest fight in arena history. But other bookies weren't so sure. They noticed that several of the oldest and most respected beings in the VIP section were whispering urgently among themselves. Some were even leaving their seats and heading for the exits, as if they didn't want to see what was about to happen. Meanwhile, Marcus began doing simple stretching exercises. He rolled his shoulders, bent his knees, and moved his neck from side to side. To most observers, these looked like basic warm-up movements that any being might do before physical activity. Zixathara, however, had been fighting long enough to recognize something else. The way Marcus tested his footing on the arena floor, how his eyes measured the distances to the walls and obstacles, the way he noted the position of every light source and shadow. These weren't the actions of someone preparing to die. They were the actions of a predator studying hunting grounds. Her second advisor returned with more information. Commander, I found something interesting. There are gaps in the galactic historical records from about 200 years ago. Large gaps. It's as if someone deliberately removed information about a specific time period. What kind of information? Military records, mostly. Fleet movements, defensive preparations, alliance formations. It looks like many species coordinated some kind of major operation during that time. Zixathara's compound eyes narrowed. The same time humans supposedly went extinct. Yes, Commander. Before she could ask more questions, the arena master approached. Marcus again. Sir, I need to ask, do you require any weapons or equipment for this match? The arena can provide standard energy weapons, projectile launchers, or protective armor. Marcus shook his head with a small smile. Thank you, but I have everything I need. He held up his empty hands, flexing his fingers. To most of the crowd, this gesture looked foolish. How could bare hands be enough against a warrior like Zixathara? But in the VIP section, the ancient Etherean elder suddenly gripped the arms of his chair. His psychic voice, filled with old terror, whispered across the arena, I remember now. I remember why we had to destroy their world. The crowd fell silent again, sensing the fear in the elder's words. Humans don't just fight, the elder continued, his voice growing stronger and more frightened. They learn every species they encounter, every technique they observe, every battle they witness. It all becomes part of them. They adapt and improve, faster than any species we've ever encountered. He stood up fully now, his ancient body trembling. They are not just warriors. They are evolution itself, walking and breathing and learning from everything around them. The elder's words sent a chill through the arena. Marcus continued his simple stretching, seemingly unaware of the growing fear around him. But Zixathara noticed something that made her blood run cold. Several of her own species' military advisors had gone completely still. Their antennae had stopped twitching, and their compound eyes were fixed on Marcus with an expression she recognized from her darkest battles. It was the look of prey animals who had suddenly realized they were being hunted. The arena master raised his tentacles high above his head. The crowd fell silent, waiting for the official start of what might be the strangest match in galactic history. Even the betting agencies had stopped taking wagers, unsure how to handle the mysterious human challenger. Fighters, prepare for combat, the arena master announced. His voice echoed through the massive space, but it seemed quieter than usual. Even he was uncertain about what was about to happen. Zixathara activated her bioelectric blade. The weapon hummed to life, crackling with deadly blue energy. She had used the same blade to defeat 127 opponents. The weapon was perfectly balanced for her four-arm fighting style, and she could channel her natural electricity through it to create devastating attacks. Marcus remained motionless, his empty hands hanging at his sides. He watched Zixathara with calm attention, like a scientist observing an interesting experiment. His breathing was slow and steady, showing no signs of fear or excitement. Begin, the arena master shouted. Zixathara moved instantly. Her signature attack had ended dozens of fights before they truly began. She launched herself forward with incredible speed, her powerful legs propelling her across the arena floor. Her bioelectric blade swept toward Marcus in a perfect arc, designed to end the fight with one clean strike. The crowd held its breath. In 3 seconds, this strange match would be over, and they could return to normal arena combat between known species. But something impossible happened. Marcus moved just slightly to his left, and at the exact same moment, he reached out with his right hand. His timing was so perfect that his fingers closed around Zixathara's wrist. Just as her momentum reached its peak, instead of fighting against her speed and strength, Marcus used them. He turned his body like a spinning wheel, redirecting all of Zixathara's forward energy to the side. Before the commander found herself flying through empty air, her weapon missing its target by mere inches, she landed hard on the arena floor, rolling several times before coming to a stop. The crowd gasped in shock. No one had ever simply avoided Zixathara's opening attack. Most opponents either blocked it with their own weapons or tried to dodge away. None had ever turned her own strength against her. Zixathara jumped back to her feet quickly. Her warrior training kicked in automatically, and she spun around to face Marcus again. But the human was no longer where she expected him to be. He had moved during her recovery, positioning himself at an angle that made her next attack awkward. When she swung her blade toward him, he simply wasn't there anymore. He seemed to flow, like water around her strikes, never quite where her weapon landed. "What kind of fighting style is this?" someone in the crowd whispered. "I've never seen anything like it," another spectator replied. Marcus wasn't fighting the way other species fought. He didn't try to match Zixathara's strength with his own strength. He didn't use speed to outrun her attacks. Instead, he seemed to fight like a natural force, patient, inevitable, and impossible to pin down. Zixathara pressed her attack, using combinations that had defeated the galaxy's best warriors. She struck high and low with different arms, creating patterns that should have been impossible to avoid. But Marcus moved through her attacks like smoke through a screen, always finding the small spaces between her strikes. The crowd watched in amazement as the fight continued. Usually, arena matches were decided quickly through overwhelming force or superior speed. This was different. This looked more like a strange dance than a battle, with Marcus leading and Zixathara trying desperately to keep up. 10 minutes passed, then 15. Then 20. Something unprecedented began to happen. Commander Queen Zixathara, undefeated champion of the galaxy, started to show signs of tiredness. Her breathing became heavier. Her strikes came slightly slower. Sweat began to appear on her green skin despite her excellent physical condition. Marcus, meanwhile, looked exactly the same as when the fight began. His breathing remained steady and calm. His movements were just as precise and flowing. He showed no signs of fatigue at all. "This is impossible," Zixathara, as chief advisor, said to his companions. "The commander has the best conditioning of any warrior in the galaxy. How can she be getting tired while the human seems completely fresh?" But those watching closely could see what was happening. Marcus wasn't just avoiding Zixathara's attacks. Randomly, he was making her work harder than necessary for every strike. When she attacked high, he moved in a way that forced her to readjust her entire body position. When she struck low, he positioned himself so she had to strain her muscles to reach him. He was fighting like gravity itself, not flashy or dramatic, but constant in wearing down everything around. It died in the VIP section. More of the ancient beings were recognizing what they were seeing. An old crystalline entity, whose species had memories going back thousands of years, spoke in a voice like breaking glass. "I have seen this before, long ago. Humans don't just learn fighting techniques, they learn their opponents, every movement, every pattern, every weakness," as if to prove the elder's words. Marcus suddenly changed his tactics. For 20 minutes, he had been purely defensive, studying Zixathara's methods. Now he began to show that he had learned from everything he observed. When Zixathara attacked with her upper right arm, Marcus was already moving to counter the follow-up strike from her lower left arm, a combination she hadn't used yet in this fight, but had used in previous arena matches. He had been watching her old battles, learning her patterns even before they met in combat. The crowd realized they were witnessing something that shouldn't be possible. This human was adapting to Zixathara's fighting style faster than she could adapt to his. Every minute that passed made him more dangerous, not less. Zixathara noticed it too. Her warrior instincts, honed through decades of combat, screamed warnings at her. She was fighting an opponent who was getting stronger during the battle, learning from every exchange, becoming more dangerous with each passing second. For the first time in her career as arena champion, Commander Queen Zixathara felt something she had never experienced before. In combat, she felt like prey being hunted by something far more dangerous than herself, and the hunt was just beginning. The dance of combat had lasted 30 minutes now, and the crowd watched in stunned silence as their undefeated champion struggled against an opponent who seemed to grow more skilled with every passing moment. Zixathara's attacks, once lightning fast and precise, now came with visible effort. Her bioelectric blade still crackled with deadly energy, but she was having trouble landing even a glancing blow. Marcus continued to move around her like flowing water, but something had changed in his behavior. The patient, defensive style he had shown for the first half of the fight was shifting into something more active. He was no longer just avoiding her attacks, he was beginning to counter them. The first real strike came without warning, as Zixathara swung her blade in a wide arc. Marcus stepped inside her guard and placed his palm against her chest plate. The touch seemed gentle, almost like a friendly pat. Then Zixathara flew backward 15 feet and crashed into the arena wall. The crowd erupted in shocked gasps. The blow had looked like nothing, just a simple palm push that any child could perform. But somehow it had sent the galaxy's strongest warrior flying like she weighed nothing at all. Zixathara pulled herself out of the crater her body had made in the metal wall. Her armor was cracked in several places, and she could feel pain spreading through her chest. How was that possible? The human strike had seemed so gentle, yet it had hit her harder than attacks from creatures 10 times the size. What kind of technique was that? Her chief advisor called from the sidelines, his voice filled with worry. Before Zixathara could answer, Marcus was moving again. This time he didn't wait for her to attack first. He approached her with the same calm walk he had used when entering the arena, but now his intent was clearly offensive. Zixathara raised her bioelectric blade to defend herself, but Marcus's hand moved in a way that seemed to bend around her weapon. His fingers touched a spot on her lower left arm, and suddenly that entire limb went numb and useless. "Impossible," she whispered, staring at her paralyzed arm. There are no nerve clusters there. My species doesn't have vulnerable points in that location. But Marcus had found something that even Vorthic medical science didn't know existed. His touch had somehow shut down neural pathways that her own doctors couldn't locate on their best anatomy charts. The human stepped back, giving her space to recover. His expression remained calm and respectful, showing no satisfaction at her confusion. He fought like a scientist conducting research, learning about her body's systems while testing different approaches. In the VIP section, the ancient beings were becoming more agitated. The old Etherean elder who had spoken earlier was now standing at the edge of his viewing box, his psychic voice broadcasting urgent warnings. Do you see what he's doing? The elder's mental voice reached everyone in the arena. He's not just fighting her. He's studying her anatomy in real time, learning the location of every nerve, every muscle, every weak point in her species' biology. A crystalline entity near him vibrated with fear, its crystal body ringing like a broken bell. This is why we destroyed their world. Humans don't just fight individual opponents. Every battle teaches them how to fight entire species. One human can learn the weaknesses of millions. The crowd began to understand the horrifying implications. If Marcus learned how to defeat Zixathara, he would know how to defeat any Vorthic warrior. The techniques he developed here could be used against her entire species. But it was worse than that. As the fight continued, observers noticed something even more disturbing. Marcus wasn't just learning Vorthic anatomy, he was incorporating fighting techniques from other species that had competed in the arena. When he moved to avoid Zixathara's next attack, he used the flowing joint manipulation of the Man-Theri people. When he countered with a strike, it carried the momentum redirection principles of the Saurian fighting arts. His footwork borrowed from the precise movements of the insectoid chitin dancers. He's been watching, someone in the crowd whispered. In horror, all this time, he's been watching every fight, learning every technique, studying every species that enters this arena. The realization spread through the spectators like wildfire. This human hadn't just appeared randomly. He had been preparing, observing, learning from dozens of different fighting styles and adding them to his own knowledge. Marcus demonstrated this terrifying adaptability as the fight progressed. He used a Gorvanian power strike to break through Zixathara's guard, then immediately shifted to Etherean mental disruption techniques to confuse or counterattack. Each technique was performed perfectly, as if he had been training in these arts for decades. Zixathara found herself fighting not just one opponent, but the combined knowledge of 47 different species. Every move she made was anticipated by techniques from civilizations across the galaxy. Her own fighting style, developed over centuries by her people, was being systematically dismantled by an enemy who had learned its weaknesses. In less than an hour, this cannot be possible, she gasped, struggling to stay on her feet as another precisely targeted strike numbed her right leg. No single being can master so many different fighting arts. But Marcus was proving her wrong with every movement. His body seemed to shift between different fighting philosophies as easily as changing clothes. One moment he fought like a Vorthic warrior, using their own techniques against them. The next moment he became a Saurian grappler or a Man-Theri, pressure point expert, or something else entirely. The ancient Etherean elder's psychic voice rose to a scream that only other telepathic beings could hear. Now you understand. This is why we had to act. Humans don't just adapt to their environment. They adapt to every other species around them. They become the ultimate predator by learning from everything they encounter. In her private viewing box, a military commander from the Galactic Defense Forces was frantically sending encrypted messages to her superiors. If this human possessed such abilities, what did that mean for galactic security? How many other humans might still be alive? What had they learned during their centuries of hiding? Zixathara made one final desperate attempt to turn the tide of battle. She activated her armor's emergency power system, channeling all her bioelectricity into her blade. The weapon blazed with enough energy to cut through starship hulls. Marcus watched the display with interest, his head tilted slightly as if observing a fascinating scientific experiment. When Zixathara charged at him with this ultimate attack, he responded with something that shouldn't have been possible. He caught the bioelectric blade with his bare hands. The energy that should have killed any organic being simply seemed to flow around his fingers like harmless light. The crowd watched in absolute silence as Marcus held the most dangerous weapon in the arena, as easily as holding a flower. "How?" Zixathara whispered, her voice barely audible. Marcus looked at her with something that might have been sympathy. "We had to learn many things to survive," he said quietly. "Your people weren't the only ones who used bioelectricity as a weapon." Marcus held Zixathara's bioelectric blade between his fingers like it was made of harmless light, instead of deadly energy. The weapon that had defeated 127 opponents was now powerless in the hands of a being who seemed to understand its nature better than its own wielder. Zixathara stared at her captured weapon in disbelief. She tried to pull it back, but Marcus's grip was gentle yet completely immovable. It was like trying to pull a sword from solid stone. Her forearms strained with all their strength, but the blade didn't move even a fraction of an inch. "Please release your weapon," Marcus said quietly, his voice carrying clearly through the silent arena. "This fight is over." But Zixathara was the undefeated champion of the galaxy. She had never surrendered in her entire career. Pride and desperation drove her to try one last attack. She released the blade and struck at Marcus with her bare fists, using all four arms in a complex pattern that should have been impossible to block. Marcus moved with fluid grace, redirecting each strike with minimal effort. His movements combined techniques from 6 different martial traditions, creating a defensive style that seemed to anticipate her attacks before she made them. Within seconds, Zixathara found herself caught in a hold that immobilized all 4 of her arms. She couldn't move, she couldn't strike, she couldn't even shift her weight to break free. The hold used pressure points from Man-Theory anatomy, combined with leverage principles from Saurian wrestling, and joint control from crystalline defensive arts. It was a technique that shouldn't exist, created by combining knowledge from species that had never shared their fighting secrets with each other. "How did you learn all this?" Zixathara asked, her voice filled with wonder rather than anger. Marcus's expression grew sad for a moment. "When your species tried to destroy us, we had to learn quickly or die. We watched and learned from every species in the galaxy. We adapted their techniques to survive in a universe that wanted us extinct." The crowd remained absolutely silent. 20,000 beings from across the galaxy watched as their greatest champion was held helplessly by an opponent who had seemed harmless just an hour ago. In the VIP section, the ancient Etherean elder was trembling with old memories. His psychic voice whispered across the arena, 200 years ago, we thought we had eliminated the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. We were wrong. We only made them stronger." Marcus maintained his hold with no visible effort. He could have kept Zixathara immobilized for hours if necessary, but that wasn't his goal. Instead, he spoke to her with genuine respect. "You fought with great skill and honor," he said. "Your techniques are impressive, and your determination is admirable. I have no desire to humiliate you or cause unnecessary harm. Will you yield?" Zixathara looked into Marcus's eyes and saw something that surprised her. There was no cruelty there, no desire for revenge against the species that had tried to destroy his people. He fought not from hatred, but from necessity. She also saw something else that chilled her to her core: infinite patience. This human could hold her in this position for as long as needed. He wasn't tired, wasn't strained, wasn't even breathing heavily. He had fought the galaxy's greatest warrior for nearly an hour and emerged not just victorious, but completely unharmed. "I yield," Zixathara said clearly, her voice carrying to every corner of the arena. The moment she spoke those words, Marcus immediately released her and stepped back. He even helped her regain her balance, checking to make sure she wasn't seriously injured. His first concern was for her well-being, not celebrating his victory. "Thank you for an educational match," Marcus said with a slight bow. "You have taught me much about Vorthic fighting techniques. I hope our species can learn from each other in more peaceful ways." In the future, the arena remained silent for Several more seconds, then, slowly, a sound began to ripple through the crowd. It wasn't cheering or applause. It was something closer to awe mixed with fear. The arena master floated down to the center of the fighting area, his tentacles shaking. As he approached the two fighters, "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, his voice cracking slightly, "we have a new champion. Marcus Chen of the human species has defeated Commander Queen Zixathara in official combat." But Marcus raised his hand before the announcement could continue. "I thank you for the honor, but I'm not here to become your new champion. I came here to deliver a message." He turned to address the entire arena, his quiet voice somehow reaching every corner of the massive space. The sound systems picked up his words and broadcast them throughout Kepler Station and beyond. "My species is not extinct," Marcus said simply. "We are few, scattered across the galaxy. But we survive. For 200 years, we have lived in hidden places, learning and growing stronger. We have studied every species, every culture, every fighting technique in the galaxy." The crowd listened in complete silence, hanging on every word. "We know which civilizations tried to destroy us. We remember their names, their worlds, their reasons for wanting us dead. But we are not here for revenge." Marcus paused, letting that statement sink in. "We are here to offer a choice. You can continue to fear us and try to hunt down the few humans who remain, or you can accept that we have earned our place in this galaxy through survival, adaptation, and strength." In the VIP section, military commanders and political leaders were already making urgent communications with their home worlds. The implications of Marcus's words were staggering. If humans had survived and grown stronger during their exile, what did that mean for galactic stability? "We seek coexistence, not conquest." Marcus continued, "But understand this, we are no longer the species you tried to destroy. We have learned from every culture in the galaxy. We have adapted to every environment. We have overcome every challenge you placed before us." He looked directly at the VIP section where the ancient beings sat. "You wanted to eliminate us because you feared what we might become. Now you can see what we have become. The question is, what happens next?" Marcus walked calmly toward the arena exit, leaving Zixathara and the stunned crowd behind. As he reached the massive doors, he turned back one final time. "We will be watching to see how you answer that question," he said. "Choose wisely." The doors closed behind him with a sound like thunder, leaving 20,000 beings to contemplate a new reality. Humanity had returned to the galactic stage, not as the weak scavengers they once were, but as something far more dangerous and capable. In the silence that followed, everyone understood that the galaxy had just changed forever. The question now was whether that change would bring peace or something far more terrifying.